Mike's on.
Thank you. Good evening, council, members of the public, friends of the media. I'd like to call the January 14th, 2025, so Happy New Year, everyone, meeting to order. First up on the agenda is 2.1, adoption of this evening's agenda. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Mullock. Are there any additions, amendments, deletions? All in favor? Carried. Adoption, we have a couple minutes to adopt. So 3.1, adoption of the minutes of the December 10th, 2024 regular meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor McLean. Any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? Carried. 3.2, adoption of the minutes of the December 12th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. Moved by Councillor Mullock, second by Councillor Pearson. Are there any errors or omissions arising from it? All in favor? Carried. We do have a delegation this evening under 4.1, courtesy of Drive OD Limited, to give us an overview of compensation review principles. We have Julie Case with us today. Ms. Case, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Oh, okay. All right. Here I go then. Okay. So thank you very much. I have been asked by your city manager to come today and talk to you about a proposed process for conducting a compensation review for staff. I had a presentation. Do you have that in front of you, or what's going on with that?
We do not.
No.
You'll
okay.
have to share you'll have to share your screen, perhaps.
Oh,
did we not load the
yeah.
presentation?
I think that's going to take me like 10 minutes to figure that out. So maybe I'll just chat if you haven't got it.
I got one. You want it?
Sorry, is there? Okay. Anyway, I came to talk to you about the compensation. So just wanted to just talk to you a little bit about how when I work with a lot of local governments, regional districts in British Columbia. And one of the most important things we do when we're doing compensation for staff is that we really do need a formal compensation philosophy or policy or approach to conduct that survey. And we need some direction from elected officials in terms of who we compare ourselves to and what is considered fair in your organization. A lot of scrutiny of public sector compensation out there. And so having a documented approach just helps with the communication, greatly helps with the communication. Okay. So when we're talking about doing a compensation review, we're really talking about trying to put a price tag on a job. So not talking about the people in the job, we're talking about the positions. So we're wanting to take a look at what positions does your organization have, and then how do we establish whether what you're paying is similar or competitive to what other British Columbia local governments are paying. So and then establishing that job value is based on what also really highly dependent on what you value within your own organization. Okay. So that's part of the process is we use that we'll go and collect some market data to find out what others are paying, and we'll use that to make some recommendations, also taking into consideration what's important at your village. Okay. So when we're choosing, this is the hard part, is about choosing who do we compare ourselves to? So that's the big question. The question is always, well, everybody's paid too much or everybody's not paid enough. And it's always, well, in comparison to what is what we want to ask ourselves. So where we need for your help and some of your insights tonight is when we're talking about who does Valemount compare itself to? What's an appropriate comparator group of other presumably local governments to compare yourself to. So like I said, I do a lot of work in municipal government in British Columbia. Most BC municipalities compare themselves to other BC municipalities. There are some BC local governments that are pretty close to the Alberta border, and they'll choose some Alberta cities as well. The bigger cities in British Columbia, the Surreys and the Vancouvers of the world, they compare themselves right across Canada. But for the most part, most of my clients compare themselves within British Columbia. And how we start trying to put a list together of what's an appropriate comparator is we kind of start with size. We start with some quantitative numbers. So we start by looking at population and annual expenses. Take a look. So those are kind of our biggest criteria for quantitative numbers. And then we also really need to take into consideration what's the geographic area in which we compete for talent. So what other organizations are down the road, down the highway from us that we need to make sure that we're being competitive with? What are other organizations, other local governments that are offering similar services and are kind of structured similarly to us as well? Because the whole point is if we're going out and asking for comparison data, we want to make sure that the cities that we're asking actually have those positions, have something comparable. So that becomes important. And where I always like to start too is talking to your, if you've got an HR department, talking to your HR manager or talking to your hiring managers and just finding out when you've been hiring people the last couple of years, where are they coming from? And when you're potentially losing people, when people are leaving your organization, where are they going to? Because that really kind of defines your marketplace. Right? This is the area that we need to compete for talent. And then not to make things complicated, but just to make sure that we are finding the right comparators. Some local governments will need to have, instead of just have one comparator group, they may need two comparator groups, or they may need another one in order to get good comparisons. So an example is when I'm looking at fire departments. So if you've got a fire department, a big fire department, and it's all a unionized fire department, and you're trying to compare some of the comparator markets that your other local governments you're looking at are volunteer fire departments, those aren't going to be good matches. So we may have to define a different market for fire positions. Not a big deal. It's just making sure that we're trying to get good data. So I know your city manager has put together a list. We had a chat and we put together a list of 12 potential local governments to look at. I do think you have that, right? Because yes, thank you.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for nodding there. So there's 12 local governments there that we have proposed to say, these make sense to us. And if we just want to get your feedback on that to see if those make sense to you. And if they do, then what we'll do is we will come up with a questionnaire. We will look at probably 15 to 20 jobs there at Village of Valemount, and I'll put a questionnaire together, and I will be asking for base salary data and any other compensation elements we may want to look at. And we will send it out to those 12 municipalities. And we will say, will you please provide that data for us in confidence? And then I take a look at that data, I summarize it, and then make some recommendations. So I would then come back with some recommendations and any cost implications that there might be for making adjustments to the salaries for the staff positions at the Village of Valemount. That's the process. Right? So identify who we want to talk to, collect the data, summarize the data, compare it to Valemount, make some recommendations. And all that takes about 3 months or so. That's it. That's all I had.
Thank you very much for that very succinct presentation on what will be what I anticipate a complicated matter. Motion, please, to receive the delegation. Moved by Councillor Mullock, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Questions for the presenter from council? Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, it's interesting when you're looking at comparable communities to compare with, but getting beyond, the size and population, would we take into account, and actually you touched on one part of it, is communities that have unionized staff is probably a good determinant, but I also wonder if there's any consideration of the tax base, like taxation level versus median income in the community, because we may all be the same size, same population, but working with a different budget based on tax base. So I'm wondering if that's a determination that's ever considered.
So I don't adjust the data. So what I will do is I'm looking for the best matches. And so when I'm putting the questionnaire together, I will put like a little description of the job that's being done, and I will ask the other local governments to compare and say this might be a unionized job. So you may have some jobs. I know you're all exempt there. There might be some jobs that you have that in other cities probably would be unionized, and then I will ask them to continue, like take a look at the nature of the work that's being done, and then match it. So I would still collect that. I don't adjust the data up or down based on tax base or housing costs or anything like that. I don't make any of those adjustments to the data. It's why when we choose our comparator group, it becomes really important to say that these would be fair comparisons.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
In terms of regional differences, there aren't a lot of huge regional differences within British Columbia. Right? I mean, the Lower Mainland's probably the most expensive, right? A little bit. And then the interior and Vancouver Island. And then there's other factors, but I don't adjust the data.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a similar question around revenue streams. Other communities may have a small run-of-river project, for example, where they're making bank off of kilowatt hours versus taxation.
We all know communities have industrial partners that contribute highly to a tax base.
Further questions for the delegation? Thank you once again for your presentation this evening. I'm looking off to my right because that's where the monitors are in our council chamber.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I will find you on a camera somewhere. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
your presentation this evening. We look forward to further engagement with you in the future.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Take care. Questions, comments on the delegation itself? Or on receipt? If nothing, all in favor of receipt? It's carried. Thank you. 5.1, under Section 5 of Administrative Reports, 5.1, Economic Recovery Strategy. We're looking, please, to approve the Economic Recovery Strategy created by Strategies North and approve staff to work with Strategies North, Council, provincial ministries, and other stakeholders to implement a plan. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Mullock. Discussion on the ERS. I noted in there, they made reference to, because we're a municipality, we're unable to give taxation benefits or, limit requisition increases to businesses because we are. I just want to note there that it's not because we're just a municipality, but we are governed by provincial policies and legislation that says thou shall not. So it's not because Valemount doesn't want to, it's because we can't. And so, important note there. And then I did have a conversation with MP Zimmer yesterday in and around the prorogue period of the federal government. Much like when the writ is dropped here in the province, cabinet still functions. And so if a plan can be formulated during the prorogue period, we should still enable us, them together to approach the federal government if necessary. Further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. 5.2, Council Remuneration Review, Comparison Communities. Looking to approve the communities of Radium Hot Springs, Fort St. James, McCusp, Karamias, Burns Lake, Warfield, Barrier, Harrison Hot Springs. Funny story on Harrison Hot Springs. 100 Mile House, Fruitville, Ucluelet, and Clearwater as comparison communities for the Council Remuneration Review. What does Council wish? We got a mover on there? Moved by Councillor McLean, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Discussion on comparable communities for council remuneration. Councillor Mullick, you look perplexed.
No,
Okay.
I'm fine.
You're
No,
there?
no, it was just interesting seeing how they grouped it.
All in favor? It's carried. 5.3, staff compensation review. First recommendation that we enter into a contract of approximately $16,000 value with Drive Organizational Development Limited for the purpose of conducting a compensation review for the village. Moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Mullick. Thank you. Discussion. I think from the delegation, I am confident that we'll get results. Didn't see much in terms of graphics, but she really talked a good game. So I'm Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this, but I mean, I guess my biggest concern is with everything else we're dealing with, the repercussions on staff, because it's very clear in here that the staff will be doing the work and the consultants will be doing the finishing pieces kind of thing, but it does indicate that it's going to be a lot of staff time involved in this, so that'd be my only concern with this process. But
I'll look to the administrator.
Staff will be involved in drafting a philosophy and a policy, but the actual review, I would really like to leave with an independent body so that there isn't any influence from here, so that I can get good information on where our compensation is at, whether it is on par with other communities, whether we're lagging, whether we're leading. The work around the entire compensation piece will include staff time for the policy work and so on, but not for the actual comparison.
Any relief from your end?
no, and I understand that part. I mean, but and it clearly says in our report, staffing implications that in reduced consultant cost, staff will be conducting a considerable amount of time, and that's my concern. Is we have a lot of things going on that, and a lot of people wearing many hats. So that's my only concern and comment.
Other comments? Discussion? All in favor? Carried. And then 2, the council approved the communities of Radium Hot Springs, Fort St. James, Nakusp, Karamias, Burns Lake, Warfield, Barrier, Harrison Hot Springs, 100 Mile House, Fruitville, Ucluelet, and Clearwater as comparison communities for the compensation, staff compensation review. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Mullick. Discussion. Councillor Blanchette.
I'm looking at this list, and there's, like, some of these communities are double our population. I don't really think that's going to give a fair assessment of what's really working. I mean, we're not 2,300 people, and we're not a district. We're a village. And Harrison Hot Springs and Radium Hot Springs are both resorts communities. So, I mean, I know, but on a population bigger scale there, I'm just wondering if this is a fair, we're the lowest population that they're going to pull from. Are there not any other communities that are more to our size? Like, I just think that there's too big of an assortment here, like not 2388 compared to our 1052. It's a big difference.
My only comment there would be the community with double our size will likely have 1.5 to 1.7 the amount of our staff as well. So the positional, I'm just throwing it out there, the positional value of staff X in a municipality of 1052 versus staff X, municipality of 2300, it's probably still just have more
She also mentioned, though,
for staff.
she also mentioned our annual expense too. So, I mean, what Harrison Hot Springs spends compared to what we do. Just want to make sure that it's a fair comparison. If we're going to pay this money to get this done, you know.
I'll look to administration.
One reason to go same size or bigger is if we go smaller, we start to not have comparison positions. So we need to be able to compare a public works superintendent to someone other than an operator, or we need to have comparable positions. So the smaller you go, the less risk, or the more risk there is that you won't find that. And it isn't typical that wages go up in a correlation to the population. Eventually, with bigger communities, you will see higher wages, but as your population rises, your salaries don't do the same. They tend to be, I'm not explaining this very well. There isn't a very clear correlation between size and salary.
Councilor Malik?
And I guess this is why I had that perplexed look on my face is yeah, you know, it wasn't until I was really looking at these, the candidates that we're going to be using as comparisons that I realized how difficult this actually is going to be. And as long as that's recognized, you know, I guess I can see your challenge, you know, in trying to do this fairly and equitably. You know, it's going to be tough, you know, and then, you know, even with some of the other things that we've been looking at with incomes of some of the communities and stuff, because, you know, just trying to get that comparison is really challenging. You know, and, you know, not only size, but just in what the makeup of each community is. You know, like looking at the various categories, the tourism, you know, and seeing what kind of impact that actually has on things, and, you know, how that's going to work. But like say, I think this is recognized, the challenge that you're going to have. So as long as that's taken into consideration, then that's what we have to do, don't we?
Further discussion? All in favor? Carried. 5.4, Community Foundation Board Report. Looking to approve staff to advertise for a Community Foundation board members and provide support in the development of a board. Moved by Councillor Pearson, second by Councillor Mullick. Discussion on community foundations. Councillor Pearson.
First, I was thrilled to find that we had a community foundation, because that was something that I've looked at for years with seeing what other communities have, and it's like, why don't we have something like that? And lo and behold, there was something tucked away in the background. So, curious what we're looking at for a makeup of the board, size and numbers.
Madam Administrator.
I don't think we're quite there yet. We'd like to bring back some terms yet, but we'd like to start advertising while we do that. Okay. Given that it's a bit of a hands-off process, I still need to confirm with the Community Foundations Canada or the Prince George Foundation. It's a little unclear which one I can go to for that information, but just how involved council is. Like, does council set the terms for the board, or does the board set the terms? Does the Community Foundations Canada set the terms? So some of that is still a little unclear. Okay. But given that we're accruing approximately $15,000 a quarter. This, I just received information for the last quarter in 2024, and we accrued another $15,000 on top of what is reported here. So it would be nice to get going with creating a board so that this money can start to be dispersed.
Yeah. No, I was impressed with the numbers. I'd kind of like to talk to their investment counselor myself, but okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor McLean?
So is this mostly to leverage other grants? Or I'm still confused about what the Community Foundation will do. What is the bottom line for it? So is it to, how many grants they need to be leveraged? You have to have 50,000 of your own or 20,000 or whatever. Is this what the Community Foundation would largely do, or is it being set up to entirely fund bigger things?
Some of the criteria would be established locally, but there are also criteria established by Community Foundations Canada. For example, this is not a fund that can be used to create scholarships, for example, because community foundations can only fund nonprofits. So, but it would be a grant program in the way that the READY grant program is a grant program. So nonprofits could apply to this as well as to others if this wasn't big enough to entirely fund their projects.
They can only fund existing nonprofits in good standing. It wouldn't be for individual recognition or scholarships. Okay. Thank you.
Follow up? Councillor? Did you want to follow up?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Carried. 5.5, the BC water meter pilot program. Looking to approve village staff to submit an expression of interest and subsequent application to the BC water meter program, pilot program. Wow. For funding up to $5 million. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Looking at about a $1.2 million install. Things have gone up immensely. Madam Administrator?
As to costs, we have all the documents in place to be a really good candidate to this program. The one thing we needed to do was update that report, and we've been looking at costs. It looks like we're still waiting for costing from one company, but it looks like between $1.5 to $2 million.
All right. So almost 100% in 9 years. There's any new business? Reading file. Anything? There's lots there from the last month, so anything folks would like to bring to surface? Maybe I'll start. Number 2, Association Kootenay and Boundary Local Governments. They're calling for resolutions from their membership. And I was thinking, we had somewhere in between 22 and 28 local government officials ran successfully in the provincial election. And with that comes 22 to 28 local government by-elections, and elections are not cheap. And I was wondering council's wish, what your wish would be, that if a candidate runs for a provincial election and is successful, which forces a local government by-election, who should cover that cost? Should it be the province? Should it be the party? Or should it be the municipality in which that candidate is born from? And if the local government needs to bore that cost, why should they?
So let's just pretend Carlina, or just pretend you are going to run for premier. Is that what we're?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
okay.
say,
So who's going to pay for when we have to fill your slot?
for
gonna pay?
example, Mayor Stamer was successful in his election, which left an opening for the mayor of the District of Barrier. Of course, they have to have a by-election. That'll come with a cost of $8,000 to $12,000, which will be 1.5% of Barrier's overall budget or tax revenue. Should Barrier have to pay for that?
I'm on the fence to say that the person who stepped into the position should be paying for that. It's not the
That's one possibility,
municipalities.
too.
It's not the municipalities, you know, responsibility to pay for something that somebody's going to advance. It's like if somebody gets a promotion, it's, you know.
And then
So-
my second question to council, is this something as important to you as a whole to forward as a resolution to a chapter-based organization?
Are we noticing that this is happening quite a lot, or is this
I think this was a one-off. I mean, it's the first time I've recognized in
That number.
the mid to high 20s of basically 1/4 of your MLAs are brand new from local government. I mean, there's been a mayor here or a councillor there in previous elections, so this was big. There was a big turnover. Councilperson?
Yeah, that's, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And in response to Councillor Blanchette's, though, I mean, if you were to do it that way, all you're going to do is discourage potentially good people from running.
Sure.
So, I mean, I love the idea of uploading to the province. I mean, they throw enough our way, it'd be nice to throw something back up the hill, but yeah, that's an interesting point.
Can I, go ahead.
But what's the difference between that scenario and I decide that I'm going to move to Timbuktu tomorrow and I'm within that three months before the next election, so I'm causing a by-election? Right? So I don't think that the province or the municipality should be on the hook for something that somebody's choosing to do. That's going to take them outside of the role that they've been elected to do, and they said they were going to do this.
We just make you attend remotely from Timbuktu.
Yeah, on the beach, I can't, no signal.
I don't know, I was just thinking about it today and just reflecting
Be
on
more
the past
thought, right?
provincial election. If it is not important, I'm not willing to forward it, but if it is something you want to hear other local municipalities debate, I'm happy to recommend a motion that I work with staff in creating such resolution. I will need assistance from staff. There are like the 5 W's of writing a good resolution. They change every year. So depending on the chapter organization.
There's only 2 whereases and 1 therefore, I'm good.
That's probably one of the things we have to look at. Do you even want to entertain it? I care either way, but
I'll move
moved by
that.
Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Mullick, that the mayor work with staff on creating a resolution around council vacancies during a provincial election. The forcing of a municipal or regional government by-election. All in favor? It's carried. Anything else in there that folks would like to raise? Nothing jumped out? Yeah, the number 8, State of the Basin focus, Columbia Basin boundary property value trends. Quite interesting that we're of the comparable communities, our assessments went up the least. If there's nothing else, is there under item 10, notice a motion to be brought forward. Then we have time for council reports under 12.1. Maybe, yes. Yours was fairly short, this stint, so I'll just, Councillor Mullick.
Okay, December 12th, I attended the RMI Committee of the Whole. On the December 17th, I attended a tourism meeting, and it seemed like a whole lot more, but that's all it is for me. It seemed to go really fast. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll crisscross the room. Councillor McLean.
Okay, I too attended the RMI Committee of the Whole on December the 12th. On December the 19th, I attended a Valemount Community Forest regular board meeting. On December the 19th, I attended the CRT online discussion, the Columbia River Treaty Negotiation. And January 13th, yesterday, I attended the regular meeting of the Local Government Committee for the Columbia Basin or Columbia River Treaty Negotiation.
Thank you. Councillor Blanchette.
And you also were January 9th, we went to the Clean Air Task Force meeting.
Oh, I forgot about the clean air.
Both attended that.
Yes.
And we welcomed Joe Newsy, a new member. Very pleased to have him on board. He's going to be a great fit. And we're working on some, moving that committee forward. We've got some money falling farther down into the pot, so it's like, yahoo. So yeah, so look for some more advancement on that program. And I too, on December 12th, was at the RMI Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
All right. So December 11th, I, along with our executive director and another committee member with the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association, had a virtual meeting with the representative from the Prince Rupert Port Authority. So they're creating a forum, the Industrial Heartland to BC Economic Corridor Forum, and they've asked that TCYHA participate on a steering committee towards that forum. So it's kind of opening the doors to lots of conversations for our entire route from Winnipeg to Haida Gwaii and Highway 5 south to Kamloops. So December 12th, also attended the Committee of the Whole meeting for the RMI. December 18th, Valemount Industrial Park regular meeting. And then January 9th, another Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association virtual meeting, this time with the Executive Director of Marketing for Centerport Canada, which is a trimodal transportation hub being built in Winnipeg, 20,000 acres or hectares, I can't remember the measurement they used, but also exciting opportunity for the association to continue to advocate for the route. So that's my report.
Thank you. With you all, I attended the RMI Committee of the Whole on December 12th, and then had a intro meeting on December the 16th, along with the other resort municipality mayors and CAOs, with the new Minister of Tourism, Arts, Culture, and Sport, Spencer Chandra Herbert. And then right after that, we received in a webinar a virtual presentation by Mayor Crompton of Whistler to all of the RCC councils, basically just giving an update of what the mayor's team is doing or has been doing, and then where we're at. December the 18th and 19th had Regional District Fraser Fort George committees and board, and I also attended the December 19th virtual information center, session on the Columbia River Treaty. As fate would have it, Valemount is an excellent place to break down, and on January the 5th, was able to tour around Harrison Hot Springs, Mayor Talon, for 3 or 4 days while he was awaiting a $7 O-ring for his truck. Wonderful. We just geeked out local government. Longtime employee of the Northwest Territories, retired, relocated to Harrison Hot Springs, won the by-election in September for the mayor there. As mentioned before, yesterday I had a call with MP Zimmer around economic recovery. And then interestingly enough, I watched a bit of a live Zoom of the Northwest Power and Conservation Council down in the Pacific Northwest. And it was the first board meeting that I've seen of that nature, even though they're very much akin to the Columbia Basin Trust. Their general counsel gave an overview of the U.S. Side of perception of the Columbia River Treaty Agreement in Principle, and the Bonneville Corps of Engineers have completed their modeling around the 3.6 MAF. What it looks like, particularly, they call it a bottleneck at Grand Coulee. So all of their impacts on their side of the border would have to do with Lake Roosevelt. And just interesting to see their different modeling of what unregulated 3.6 looks like versus regulated 3.6, or unplanned flood control versus planned flood control. The reservoir levels were quite different with all three modeling. So that's my report. We don't need to receive that. Any questions of each other's reports? Okay. The calendar of events is there under 13.1 for your information. And we will move to public comments under 14.1 on items considered by council as part of the approved agenda. Are there any public comments this evening? Happy New Year. Hearing none, council will please give notice under 15.1 to proceed to an in-camera meeting for consideration of 4 items per section 91 A, C, and D of the community charter, to discuss matters related to A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality, which 2 items, and C, labor relations or other employee relations for 1 item, and D, security of the property of the municipality, 1 item. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor McLean. All in favor? Carried. Thank you all.